Hello, everyone, and welcome down to episode 78 of the Down South Photo Show with me, Brendan Waits, no longer in Tasmania. Now, the reason we're laughing, and you're going to have to stick with us, folks, is we've just recorded half an hour of a show without anyone
recording it.
Anything. So that's why we're having another crack at this, and we're a little bit flat about that, but never mind.
As you do. We know, like you said, we know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's right. With me, Brendan Waits, back home in Ocean Grove, Victoria, Australia, and the guy on the other screen or in your other ear, if you are listening to the podcast, it is Cam Blake, who is not in Hobart, Tasmania. He is in Melbourne, Australia.
I am in Melbourne, Australia.
Hello, Cameron.
Hello, Brendan. This is we've never done this 78 episodes, and we've never stuffed that up.
That was on me. I'll wear that
That's
one
good.
like a badge
That's
of
good.
honor.
So everyone, you've missed a great show already. If you're tuning in just now, you've missed the first 30 minutes of the recording.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do this off the cuff when it's no longer actually off the cuff. But that's all right.
Though? You know what? We're going to do a completely different show now.
Yeah, that's right.
We've what we spoke about. But yes, I'm in Melbourne. To quickly recap, we can make this a short show. To quickly recap, I've been in Daylesford for 2 days. I've just come back from Bright. I head on the boat tomorrow. Everything's good.
We'll see you next week for episode. No,
thanks very much. Yeah.
No, you've been around a lot, and you've been working hard since we finished the walk a week or so ago. Thank you to everyone who has watched the walk episode, which went out last week. It is fast becoming one of our most watched episodes, which is great. Yeah. And we also cruised past a little milestone of 500 subscribers on YouTube, which is awesome. Thank you. Give it up for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have 500 plus. When can we say we're good at this? Is that like after 1,000?
Clearly not yet.
Clearly when we press record properly. The 500 subs is good. And as we said before, we've had like over 20,000 downloads of the show on YouTube.
We have.
And close to 8,000 downloads of the podcast.
Correct. So
20,000 downloads, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's funny because clearly a lot of people who watch the show aren't subscribers, and we're not going to shove it down your neck, people, but go ahead, hit the subscribe thing. It's free.
That's 78 episodes. That's an average of 256 downloads an episode.
How's your maths going? Well done.
Well, yeah, these are the kind of numbers I just pull off the top of my head.
Exactly, that's right.
Yeah, just click, here we go. But no, it's great. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in. And the show that we put together last week, I was a little bit nervous about how we recorded all that and whether or not it would come together as a show. And I think you did a really good job at putting that together, and the nice photos and the music in between was lovely.
Yeah. It was a bit. I actually think we could have done more in hindsight, but like in terms of recording out on the track, because people quite liked it. There was no way on God's green earth on the last night we were going to do any longer than 90 seconds though.
That was colder than a witch's tit that night. It was freezing.
It was as cold as charity. It was and given that we haven't had winter yet, that was the coldest I've felt in quite some time. So
like that was I think we said on the video that we thought it was around about 3 degrees, but Dad said that Lake St Clair was -4 overnight that night, and we were just up the road, so it was definitely minus. And that was the day we had a bit of snow coming into camp as well, which was pretty cool. So
so what we're going to do tonight is give a brief little sort of recap on. Look, the Overland Track was a big deal for me and a big deal for the Down South Photo Show as well. It was something that was in the pipeline for a good 6 to 8 months. We talked about it a lot on the show. If you are able to and you get a chance to do the Overland Track, for God's sake, just go and do it. It'll blow your mind. It is an awesome place to photograph.
Agree.
We were talking as well about the physical demands of it, and in the week since we did the walk, I've actually managed to get myself a little calf injury. So and I put it down to fatigue from the walk, I would have thought, and then not resting. As soon as I got back, I was straight back into work and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And the body has a way of just going, I don't think so. You need to just slow down a wee bit here, young fella.
Yeah, well, it's funny. My left ankle, which is always a bit iffy anyway, just in Bright the last few days, like I was getting up in the morning and my ankle was the same. My ankle was like, not today. Yeah, you can. And I'm like, okay. So I had to sort of warm it up a bit, give it a rub and give it a stretch, but it was okay once again. But it's one of those trips where, like I said, you get the overland hobble at the end. Everyone walks off with a hobble, and if you don't walk off with a hobble, you haven't done it properly. So,
well, there's actually quite funny footage when we stopped in that little town on the bus coming back.
oh, that's right. And you fell off the bus, didn't you?
Well, someone started recording. I didn't know they were recording, but I got out of the bus and I could barely get down the step that's only a foot high. I was just, oh boy, not another step.
Yeah. And then because you're sitting in a bus all stiff and you stiffen up, and
oh yeah,
the 6 or 7 beers you had at Lake Sinclair didn't help either, probably.
Wasn't 6 or 7. Don't be like that. It was 3.
13. It was 13.
And that first one I had after the walk was one of the best beers I've ever had in my life. But it was absolutely sensational. And I think, and we were talking before about because this is our second attempt at recording tonight, so we'll stick with us, folks.
Bear with us.
It was a wet walk, and Cam said as much. It was one of the wettest ones he'd been on, which I think, and again, I've never done it any other way, so I wouldn't know, which I do think made for a bit more of a slog of a walk and a bit of a harder walk, in particular when it came to making sure you could see where you're putting your feet. Along the track, there are a lot of rocks and there are a lot of roots. And, if you stand on a wet route, you can slide pretty easily. So you got to be nice and careful where you're putting your feet constantly. So I think physically it was a wee bit more challenging than I thought it was going to be. I did train for it. So,
you did lots of stair climbing and all that kind of stuff. I think what catches people out with the Overland as well is, like, for example, when you say there's rocks and there's roots, I think people go, oh, okay, so there's like a couple of meters of rocks, but there's sections of kilometers of rocks and roots where you are just head down, concentrating on every step you're taking. There's sections in the Frog Flats where it's ankle deep mud. You had, and credit to you because you're about the only person in the group that did it, but you went early off the bat, and you went, you know what, I'm just walking through these puddles. My feet are wet, don't give a shit, I'm going to walk through them. And by doing that, you probably avoided 1,000 more extra rocks and roots that you didn't need to go over and around, where other people try and dodge those big muddy patches, and they end up going on roots and they go around the side, and that's when they sort of slip off and stuff. So I was proud to see you doing that. When I was walking behind you a few times, I'm like, yes, finally, someone in the group is just walking straight through the guts.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point, right? Everything was wet. Like, I was wet to the bone. Like, it couldn't get any wetter. So just plow on through, I think I did sort of put a bit of faith in the fact that when I couldn't see under the water, because I didn't carry poles either.
No, you didn't.
So, I made a judgment call a couple of times that it was going to be okay for me just to plow on through. And luckily it worked that way. If it looked really iffy though and quite deep, I would tentatively put the foot in the water, not just slam my foot in there, just to make sure I had my footing. And that tend to work fine.
And that's the thing, like you can go about it a couple of ways. You can try and stay as dry as you want for as long as you want, but in the end, after 6 days and that kind of weather, you're going to get wet. And you can, I think there was a few people boasting that their feet were dry the whole trip. I'm like, I was calling bullshit on that. I'm like, no way they were.
No, I don't think so.
No. And then, you had to set up your tent. I felt sorry for Jamie. Jamie's tent was just, he would have been better bringing a packet of tissues to sleep in.
He kind of did, didn't he?
He may as well. That tent was shit. He got his money back though,
which was good. And, mind you, in hindsight, a masterstroke on my behalf, I had the same tent.
Yes. Okay.
And chose to upgrade it because I wasn't happy with the fact that it didn't have a fly. I thought that was a bit, a single skin tent would be fine if it was pure summer. But not in those conditions.
No, and that's it's a good lesson if you're going to do the Overland Track as well, that you can go lightweight and you can try and keep the weight down as low as you can, but there's some things you just can't sacrifice, and one of those is a waterproof tent, or at least a 3-season tent. Even though this one said it was 3-season,
no,
that was saturated from day dot, and
it's a 1-season tent.
And poor Jamie, he literally slept in wet for the whole trip. But to his credit, he didn't bitch and carry on. He didn't want to go in the hut. He didn't try and get out of it.
No.
He did also wear the same pair of undies and socks the entire trip.
Yeah. I don't know what the challenge was in that.
Well, I said I'd buy him a free lunch if he did it. Now he is Italian, and they're generally a little bit tighter with the coins. But I wouldn't. Yeah. So he wore the same undies and socks for 6 days straight. Like, can you imagine putting those undies back on?
No, I can't. I don't want to even talk about it.
They could have walked. He could have taken them off. They could have walked next to him the whole way
They could
along
have
the track.
easily.
Yeah.
So we've gone down a rickety road here. This is not good.
Yeah,
Getting
that's
back on things back on
it's
track.
different to the last episode.
Yeah, well, that's right. Before we run this whole thing straight into the ground, photographically. So
Yes.
what made it so good was the fact that you had to work so hard. So you were doing the hard yards, literally, 20 kilo pack on in the rain, in the mud, in the slosh, wet everywhere. So that when the payoffs came, and believe me, folks, they are plentiful on the overland track.
Yeah.
When they came, it just made you want to whip that camera out and just soak it all in.
Yeah.
And I think as well, because I knew personally that it would be highly unlikely that I will be back on the overland in those conditions, because I think I will do it again, but I don't know when that's going to be. But I felt like this was probably my only opportunity to take these photos in the conditions that they were presented in.
Yeah.
So it really made me focus, pardon the pun, on my shots, on composition. One thing that I really liked to do on this walk was get a bit of distance between me and another walker. I didn't really, as much as I loved the company, everyone was great on the trip, I wanted to focus a lot on the photos. So I didn't want to feel for a second that I was holding anyone up by taking photos, because that would just sort of cramp your style. You don't want to be worrying about other people. You want to be taking the photos. So I sort of would position myself sort of third or fourth wheel, where we knew we had the guys out the front. So we had Luke out the front as the leader. You had someone like Saskia who was at the front. We'd have Jeff, who would normally pass me. So he's a very fit man, Jeff. He smashed it.
Don't go walking with though, because all it does is rain.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I generally find that I'd be able to get, maybe a few hundred meters to the walker in front and a few hundred meters to the walker behind. So that I could have my own time in there. And I think even if I never took one photo, just that solitude in a place like that did me absolute wonders.
And I know what you're going to say. The next bit you're going to say, because the tour was so expertly run by myself and Luke, that we created that space for everyone to have that experience. So I knew you were going down there.
Took the words right out of my mouth, and it was no fluke at all that I got to have such an experience like that.
Well, it's funny because we do actually try and space it out. Like it's all about safety, and obviously you want to know where everyone is, and that's why you sort of have bookends. And we had one day where we lost someone who went ahead, which was fine. We addressed with that, but the idea is that the person in front can set a bit of a pace. I can set a pace at the back. And you can spread out, and Louise did the same thing. She had moments where she just wanted to walk on her own. And she said one day she was walking on her own for about 35 minutes, 40 minutes and had the whole place to herself, which is amazing. And you're right, like the company was great. Everyone was fantastic. We all had a great time. But I even had a few moments myself where I dropped back just to take it in. And especially coming across those button grass plains and that fog on that second day where it was just all quiet and fog, and it was great. Took a few photos and took a video and just stood in and take it all in. So, but you're right. It's one of those tracks where the harder you work, the more you get. And there is photo, even if the weather's a bit shut in, you can still get heaps of great photos. And
well, this is another point that I wanted to make is the photos that are to be had directly from the track are incredible.
Yes,
you don't have to go off the track.
That's right.
On the track, you're getting your camera out. You're stood on the boardwalk, you're getting your camera out. You don't have to go off somewhere and look for a composition. It is all right in front of you. You enter into this world. It's a photographer's paradise. There's no question about that. So we'll talk a little bit more about gear a bit later on. But I think as far as I was concerned, the as I say, the constant payoff of you're battling, and there's a couple of times when I was quite fatigued and getting a little bit annoyed at myself for not being fitter, particularly towards the back end of day 3 and the back end of day 4, which were a lot of climbs, and it was so wet, and towards the back end of day 3, I was actually getting really hot because I was overloaded.
That's right. You stopped on that way up that big hill.
Had to. I had to get.
Lisa, I caught up to you.
I took, I got down to one layer and a pack. So because I had to, I was just cooking.
It's funny you say that, because I've done, like you said, I've done the track heaps of times, and I would put it to you that you're probably fitter than I am, I reckon, because you're doing a lot of training beforehand, and you do a bit of bike riding, stuff like that. I don't do anywhere near as much as I used to, but that's where I think the mental, like, it's amazing how much your brain can get involved with it, because I can honestly say on that whole track, there was maybe only once I felt a bit tired, but the rest of it, I'm like, yeah, I feel pretty good, because I know what was coming. I knew where I was, and
exactly.
Your
You
brain
knew what was around the next corner.
Yeah, I know exactly where I was and where I had to go to, and I think that's a really, really incredible part of our body, that you might be fatigued, but the mind has a lot to do with that. So if you don't know where you are, you're probably like, well, where's this camp? Like, we're getting there yet? I'm tired, and your brain just starts shutting down everything else. And
which was kind of good because quite often I would catch up to Jeff, who was normally the guy in front of me.
Yeah.
And he had the watch, which was counting down. He had the GPS.
Yeah.
And he would just give me, and to his credit, he didn't say, hey, do you want to know? Or anything like that. I would have to ask him, which I think was great, because I wanted to be a little bit surprised by it as well. So you don't want to sort of give the ending away, with how far exactly have you got to go and all that sort of stuff. But it was one of those things where, like I said before, it wasn't until it's not until you're actually on the track where you start to understand exactly what everyone's raving about. In terms of the physical toughness, in terms of that bloody landscape, mate. It's etched in my brain. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. That's like I said, I've done the walk that many times, and not once have I got to the end of the walk and go, that was boring. Like, never.
No.
Never, ever. And it's been all seasons, all conditions, all weather, or different people, whatever. And like, even like the shots we've got in our backgrounds, which we can talk about as we go through, but like, I've been to those spots 1,000 times. Every time I go there, I'm still blown away by like how it looks and the conditions of what it was. But yeah, it's an amazing walk, and I'm super glad we all did it and had a good time. And I think the weather sort of added to the adventure as well. Like, if you have sunshine the whole way, it's lovely and you get all the views. But like you said at the start of this little section, that you've got to work. Like, you've got to be out on the track. You've got to walk the distance, and you get rewarded in spades. Like it's great.
Definitely. We'll in the previous episode, you saw what gear we had. Cam and I both shot with Olympus cameras, which is Cam's pretty much go to. There's Cam's right there. He's OM1. I had the OM5, which is the newer little pocket rocket camera.
Yes.
I was, how can I put this? I won't say I was pleasantly surprised. I'm not surprised that it handled everything I wanted it to handle. One thing I was really surprised and almost shaking my head about was the fact that I never had a tripod the whole trip, and no one did. I don't think anyone took a tripod on this walk.
No, not one single person took a tripod.
Yep. Which it sort of goes against the grain of landscape photography, right?
Well, it sort of does, and I think the only reason why we all decided not to take the tripod is because we were not sure we were going to see stars. Because I think the only reason why people were thinking it was to do astro. I know Jamie made a last minute decision to swap into his Canon and use one of my other OMs that he had, so we could have this image stabilization. But yeah, no one took a tripod. We had a few Olympus users and a Nikon, I think, and a Fuji. I can't remember. And a Canon. So those guys were sort of okay not to take a tripod. But yeah, it's the modern technology in the cameras these days with image stabilizer and anti-shake assistance and all those kind of things means you can hand hold shots the whole way.
You can. So let's talk about our backgrounds briefly. So this is the I said this before, the Douglas Creek.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. But we're not going to tell you exactly where this is because it's a slightly sort of secretish location. If you look hard enough, you'll find it. But that shot there is not handheld, and it's not tripod either. That is my camera sitting on the ground and the lens being balanced by a stick.
Really?
Actually, yep. I just needed to elevate the lens slightly, otherwise you'd have a lot of that foreground.
Yeah.
So I jammed a stick under there, used a live screen, used the built-in ND filters, and hey presto. There's a couple of faults in that image that I need to tidy up, and the more I look at it, and I'm sure you can see them if you look hard enough. But we got down there, and to Cam's credit, he got our other guide, Luke. He gave him the nod to get me down to this spot, which I'm so grateful for, because just to be there, to get the shot was great, but to actually stand there in Jurassic Park and see that, it was absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, we got down there and we had a couple of other photographers with us, and one of the people said, "Can you show me how to shoot this?" And I said, "Well, here's the thing. How about I shoot it?
Yeah, you
can see exactly, and I'll tell you exactly the settings that I'm using." And they were like, "Yeah." So it was like a live workshop, if you like, for a few minutes of them watching literally over my shoulder, fly on the wall kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and how I would shoot this sort of thing. And again, folks, I'm not the world's greatest photographer, but I do like to think I know what I'm doing when it comes to getting shots like this. And I'm wrapped with that image. It came up almost as good as I would hoped. There's a couple of things I want to tweak about it, but it's pretty good. But my 8-25 was completely had condensation all through it. So the first couple of shots I did were no good, and I was really frustrated with myself. So I ripped the phone out and did a couple of shots on the phone. And then it dawned on me that one of the other photographers with us was shooting Olympus as well. They had their 12-100. I said, "Please, may I borrow your lens?" They were only too happy to loan it to me, of course, which was very, very nice of them. So I got a couple of shots, and by the time I did that, my 8-25 had sort of freed itself of condensation, and I was able to get this. Total of 15 minutes, I reckon I was in this location. But as I said to Luke at the time, "Leave me here all day. I'll see you in Hobart."
It's one of those locations as well that it's almost like you want to go upriver or downriver. You just like this is one little section of it. What's up over that little waterfall at the back, or what's down that way? And
I mean, it's a bloody postcard, mate. Look at it. I mean, it's just
nuts.
It's absolutely brilliant. Like what a scene. I mean, that is, an artist would paint that, and they'd make it up to look that gorgeous. It couldn't exist in real life, but
it is. It is almost Middle Earth, isn't it? So
it is, yeah.
My little background,
yes, please,
is Lake Windermere in the bottom right. Oh, what am I doing there? And we've got Mount Oakley to the left, and then we've got Mount Ossa and Pillion west, sort of in the clouds there straight away. But this is a shot from the lookout just as you start to drop into Lake Windermere on day 2. And this is when we had this rain come through with sunshine, then rain and sunshine. And it's a Tassie thing, I think, where you just get these crazy clouds and light breaking through onto the mountains, and you get these, beautiful warm parts of light versus cold parts of cloud. And it just worked so well. So this is, I think I said it on the last episode that we didn't record, that this is one of the moodier moments I've seen from this lookout. Usually you get either nothing or you get sunshine and maybe a little bit of cloud, but it was pretty good there. So it was a beautiful spot. And then we got down there and it rained on the way into camp, and the sunshine that we saw was non-existent for the next day. Although the next day we did have a little bit of sun pop out here and there. We had a few moments of, you could hear a collective roar across the track.
Day 3 being the longest day, the 17K, I think it was.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
into Pellion. That was something else. I think if I could pick one day to relive, it would probably be day 3.
Okay.
Mainly because of the diverse terrain that we covered as well. Before I get onto that, I just want to mention when you shot that shot that you've got there, where we stopped there for about 10 minutes. We had packs off. It was quite good. If you do a 180 to that shot and turn the other way, you've got these amazing grass plains. So you've got the button grass plains there, and you've got these ridge lines. And we talked about this on the show, that I'm not used to seeing ridge lines covered in grass. It's rare. I don't know, maybe more in the New South Wales high country you'd see that as well, and a bit of the Victorian high country, but nothing like that you see down there in Tassie.
Well, it's funny. It is funny you say that, because I've just come back from Bright, and we were up Mount Hotham a couple of days ago, and the Razorback, which goes from Hotham across to Feathertop. And I thought about that because there's a few little low-lying sort of snow gums that grow on there, and it is a bare sort of ridge line, but it's a different type of grass, and it doesn't glow like the button grass does. So a lot of people, if I had $1 for everyone I've had down in Tassie who see a button grass plain and go, "Gee, this looks like Scotland," I wouldn't be doing a podcast with 507 subscribers, because it does. It just looks. It's got that sort of Scottish sort of feel.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they got button grass or similar in the Scottish Highlands as well. But yeah, you're right. Behind us on the other side of this shot, there's a few more lakes, and we just had that light sort of filtering all through that landscape, and you were really intrigued on that versus everyone else is looking the other way, which is a great example of how everyone sees things differently.
Yeah. I think that shot behind you, I zoomed in on Mount Oakley, which is over your right shoulder there.
That one. Yep.
Yeah, I've got a shot with that ridgeline in the foreground and just Mount Oakley, which I love. It's I'm really happy with it. But it's kind of like I shot that and then just pivoted. I'm like, no, hang on a minute. Look at the light that's happening. I mean, look, you could have pointed your camera in 360 degrees from that point and got a great photo.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that's what made it so unique, was that we had, at one point there was probably 12 people with cameras out, and they're all pointing in different directions.
All different directions, yeah. And it happens a lot where people just see things differently, and like I've split it up into two different people. Like, some people just see grand landscapes, and other people see details, like the mini landscapes within landscapes, or macros, or whatever they are. So you can come up to the track and like people like this far away from a fern, and you like people this far like taking massive wide angles. Like, why did you all take different photos? Because everyone sees things differently. So. But yeah, day 3 is a great day, and then I do remember day 4 was a tough day after the Douglas Creek. We climbed up that mountain, and you did a very valiant thing on top of the hill there. You tagged me out, so we were at 1,100 and something meters, or something more than that, 1,200 and something meters at the Pillion Gap, and it was fair to say the weather was shite.
Yeah, we didn't time that well, did we? We sort of got there at the peak of the bad weather.
Yeah, we're hoping that we might have got there when the clouds were sort of splitting up a bit, but we got to the top. It was pouring rain, howling wind, and everyone was happy to move on down into camp. And that's when we did that little episode from the front of the hut with the mountain in the background. That was after that day. So but every day on the track's a challenge, and it's never the same. And it's awesome fun.
I think it would come as no surprise to you to learn that night 4, that was when I felt the coldest.
Yeah.
And that was when I actually came to you and said, I'm battling a bit here.
Yeah.
And you were like, you go in that hut right now. Go in there and just pretend you're looking at the signage. And
that's it. Yeah.
Look, I mean, we're not supposed to go into the huts because we're on a group thing, and and that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
And it was quite funny because I went in there, and I just felt my core temperature starting to lift immediatally, because it was like 32 friggin' degrees.
It was like a sauna in that.
It really was.
Yeah.
And I was just sort of trying to make myself useful and taking photos of signage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, as luck would have it, a lady who was there said, "Oh, you're with that photography group that you're in front of us on the walk." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, can I see some of your photos?" You certainly can.
Yeah,
so I sat down and got my phone out and
let me pull up a pew and let me.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it was a good 25 minutes later when you came. It was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Oh, yeah, sure. No, we can show you some photos." Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I remember I was sitting at, because what made me think about that was there was people coming out of the hut. They're like, it's too bloody hot in the hut.
That's right. Fresh air, coming out to cool off.
And I'm like, oh yeah, Brendan's in the hut. What's he doing in there? And there you are, giving a slideshow presentation to this family. No, one of them was a lawyer, wasn't a lawyer and something else?
Yes. And it was funny because she was looking at the photos and she goes, "Can I get a copy of all of these?" Well, here's my contact details.
Yeah. You were making sales on the track. But yeah, that was a cold night. And then the next day after that, we had all the waterfalls, which we didn't visit all of them because there was just way too many people going down to one of the smallest platform, the edges of one of them. But we went down to Hartnett Falls, which is which is a little bit like what was behind you. It's almost like a Japanese garden, and there was some incredible stuff down there. Beautiful grasses and mosses and things like that. And then we had to climb that last climb, and then we had snow. We got snow on that day, which was crazy.
So when we were day 5, late on day 5, doing the descent down, and I was warned that it was a steep descent into camp, and you weren't just whistling Dixie there, Mr. Blake.
No, it wasn't.
It was very steep.
Yeah,
massive payoff though. So at the bottom of that was that incredible cascade off to the right hand side, which was sort of like my background, but really condensed. It was like a really small little cascade.
Yeah.
And although my brain was like, just get to camp set up, I'm like, I can't give up on this.
Yeah.
So to talk a little bit more about the actual photographic side of things, I found myself, because the OM has got the built-in ND filter.
Yeah.
I felt myself switching to that immediately with Waterfall. So the vast majority, 90% of my Waterfall photos have got the glowy, the dreamy look with the long exposure.
Yeah.
Being able to shoot handheld quickly is amazing.
And it's those little, like you said, there's those little moments where you come across something. It's usually a little stream, a little cascade, where 20 years ago you would have to stop, pack off, tripod up, set the camera up, put a filter on, take your time, bang. Where now you can just rock up, chuck it in whatever mode you want to chuck it in, hand hold it, and it's almost cheating in a way. It's almost a bit too easy, isn't it?
In some respects, yes, but in others, no, because it gives you so much more flexibility. Now, I must admit, I have had a close look at some of my photos, and they're not as pin sharp as I would have hoped. But then I look at the XF data, and they are pushing the 4 to 5 second, which is understandable. They're good, but they're not, that pin sharp, which says to me, tripod and all that sort of stuff. But mate, if I had a tripod with me, I wouldn't have been getting into camp until midnight.
Yeah, that's right.
You just you can't sort of stop for. You got to, if you had a tripod and you want to set up, you'd really have to make sure that you wanted that shot.
Yeah, and that's I think that's one thing I was a little bit disappointed about, was that we didn't have any of that golden afternoon light at every camp. Because when you have nicer weather, you can go out to the helipads. Almost every helipad at every camp has an absolute drop dead view of something, and that's where we normally set up the tripods, and you'll do your proper stuff and things like that. And as you're walking along the day, it's generally that more, I won't say happy snap, because you still take effort to do it, but it's more of that. Okay, it's a lesser setup sort of shot. It's more handheld. It's thinking a bit outside the box a bit. So, but you can find that some of them, especially 4 or 5 seconds handheld, like that's pushing it.
It is.
But yeah, you're right. If you took a tripod, you would never get into camp. And that's why if we ever did it again, I'd probably recommend we try and do it maybe out of season, but take longer, spend a couple of days at each location. And
that's incredibly tempting, is to turn it into a 10 to 12 day hike.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would be so easy to have 2 nights, definitely at Pelion. Probably even 2 nights at Waterfall Valley, if I'm honest. It's such a beautiful landscape there with Barn Bluff. Is that?
Yeah, Barn Bluff. Like I said, it popped out a couple of times. We said that on the video when we were recording it. It was sort of popping in and out. But yeah, again, if you got nice weather there, you could easily spend. Like I'm very, very tempted every winter. I haven't done it for a while, but I'm very tempted to go into Waterfall Valley and to spend 3 or 4 days in the hut in winter.
Yeah,
and just sort of do little day trips out of there, either back down the track or back towards Cradle, and you get some crazy good shots.
You would, if you just set yourself up there, that would be something else.
Be nice.
And also we mentioned on day 2 when the weather broke for us, sort of broke into what Cameron's got behind him now. It never did we have solid blue sky. There was always some cloud or some rain about.
Yeah.
But we sort of set off on day 2, got only half an hour, 45 minutes in, and the weather broke, and the light started to come. And that was the moment for me, I think, where I realized I was into this walk. Now, I'm still not completely convinced that Cradle Mountain's real. I don't think it exists. I think this is all just it's AI. The whole thing.
It's a big cardboard cutout.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see the front side of it at all for the whole time I was there.
We saw the arse of it,
and I did manage to get a cool shot of the backside of it, which I kind of like, because it's not a popular photo. It's not the shot of Cradle that everyone gets. So I'm glad I've got something a little different, I guess. But but as I say, day 2 when the weather started to happen for us, and you could start to see the tops of some of the mountains and the area that you were in, it was actually quite hard to believe that you were in such a pristine environment.
Yeah. Well, even the mountain behind us, Mount Oakley here. Remember we saw that on day 2.
Unbelievable.
And I said to everyone, I said, well, that's Mount Oakley down there, the jaggedy one, and we'll be camping under that pretty much after day 3. And everyone's like, Jesus, that's a long way away. Like,
Yeah.
we at day 3, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we're there. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, okay, it wasn't really that far. Like it didn't
Yeah.
sound
Yeah. In fact, we saw that from that platform where we had lunch and the sun was coming out.
That's right, we
And
did.
we all pointed it out, and it was then when you get to day 3, you're actually camping on the other side of it, looking back the other way, which
That's right.
is
You're over the back
nuts.
here.
Which is nuts. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the good thing about that walking day is that on day 3, the long day, you can see Pillion Hut like halfway in the day. Because it's like
Is that a good thing?
I don't know, but there's a massive gorge that goes along in here.
Yeah.
And you got to go around it. So you're like, oh, there's the hut over there. Everyone goes, oh, we're close. Like, no, we've still got 10 kilometers to go.
That's right. We're not even halfway through
We're
day
not even
3.
halfway there. Everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. But and I think that's something that also people reflect on when they get to the end of the track, is that like 60 odd kilometers, it's a long way to walk. And even 17 kilometers in a day on that day 3 is a lot of walking. But again, it goes back to that you get the reward for the effort you put in. And anyone that walks off the overland track and doesn't feel like they've accomplished something special, you need to get your head read, because it's a stunning walk with a lot of effort and preparation. And I was just really, really happy and super stoked that everyone came along that did, and we had a good time, and everyone got to the end, and there was no injuries and no issues. Everyone had good photos and had a few
I'll
laughs.
tell you next week if there's an injury.
Well, that's it. Well, I'm going to see you, and I'm going to see you in 2 days. So
right,
I'm going to pop in and see how you're going down there before I head home.
Thank you.
So yeah, it was awesome. Like I said, we had a great crew, and it was good fun.
A little bit more about the gear. So one great thing about modern technology are these things, as much as they're much maligned. He says that he's left his torch. So how good am I? So the iPhone.
Yeah.
Because I was able to stick that thing in my pocket and not have to get it out of anywhere but my pocket to take photos.
Yep.
I did a quick count. I did 1,400 photos on that.
Did you really?
I did.
Wow.
That was for the whole Tasmania trip. So probably on the overland itself, around 1,000, I would have thought.
Wow. Okay.
Of just when, I knew it wasn't an award-winning photo or anything overly breathtaking, but I wanted it. I had to get it because that's the photographer in me coming out. So I'd grab the iPhone out, do a quick shot, muck around with the exposure settings and that sort of stuff. Panorama was good, for that sort of stuff when it was just beyond the reach of the lens. I wanted to shoot panoramas, so I did that. I got some absolute cracking photos on the phone, which again won't be suitable for printing large or anything like that, but for to show the kids, to for my own happy snaps, my own travel log. It was invaluable. Also, one thing with the iPhone Pro is its macro lens. When we were seeing the fungi, I was able to line up a shot, get it, and there was a couple of times when I got the shot on the phone, went, okay, camera out. I've got to get this on the big camera because it was such a good little composition or something like that.
I get that as well, and I just did that in Bright the last few days. I find that my iPhone has become the ultimate composition tool. That
100%.
Will this work with the big camera? Let me have a look. And you do a wide angle shot, or you do this. Even the long exposure that you can do on these phones now, you can sort of get a preview of what the water behind you might look like. And that's when you might go, yeah, cool. All right, that's the iPhone shot. Let's get the big boy out. Let's do it properly, and away we go. But I found the iPhone was great for doing some videos, and like the snow, when we're walking through the snow, was really cool. And
I don't know if you can see that, but maybe you can't. But there's a picture. That's Jack, coming up Marion's.
Yes,
and to be able to get that shot quickly because he was only there for a brief second. He was. I'll just zoom up there. There he is. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's a photo that he's going to love forever as well. And if I didn't have that with me,
you wouldn't have that shot. No.
So, it was like having a very high-end compact camera in my pocket.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I highly recommend.
Which I think that's what they are. Yeah,
they are. They're high definition, high-end compact cameras with phones attached to them.
Yeah, 100%.
So it was very, very good that I was very handy that I was able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an absolute highlight. One other little thing I want to mention as well was, and I hope he's listening, is I want to mention Glenn Lavender, because I found the best portrait studio on earth.
That was
it's
pretty
just
good.
a 4-day hike to get to it.
Yeah, it was some of those photos. I actually haven't seen any of the photos people took of me, which is nice.
Maybe they're hiding them.
I don't know, but yes,
no, I've seen some of yours, and I saw them as they were being taken. So.
Right, because we came into, it's a place called Ducane Hut, which is on day 5. It's on the Waterfall day, and we got into the hut, and it was bright. It wasn't raining. There was a bit of sort of muted sunlight coming through the clouds, and I walked in a bit later than everyone else because I was at the back, and Brendan's in the hut running a portrait workshop. I'm like, all right, we're stopping for a portrait workshop. And everyone was sitting on this beautiful table with this old, and the wind, like, not only was the light delicious, but the window itself had so much character. It had like, rusty sort of look, and it had cobwebs all through it. But we got some great shots of all the guests sitting at this table.
I will put up on the screen the photo.
It's got to be a photo of Jack.
The photo that Louise took of Jack. Thank you,
Yep.
Louise. Hope you don't mind us showing this photo.
Yeah.
What I loved about it was I was just sitting there. We're literally having our snack, packs off, sitting there in this dark shack, I suppose you would call it, shack.
Old hut.
With just this beam of light coming through. And Aaron was sitting across from me, and he was telling me, some bullshit story that he carried on with. Like
he did talk a fair bit of shit on the trip, didn't he?
He knows I'm joking. And I said to him, please keep talking, but I'm going to take your portrait.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yep, sure, no worries. And being the consummate professional that he is, he just kept on talking away, and I'm snapping away. And I showed him, and he was like, he sort of stopped. He was like, okay, can you show me how to do that?
Yeah, he got right into that, didn't he?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden we had Louise there, and we had Lindsay there, and Saskia was there, and Jeff was there.
Yeah.
And it was like, let's do a workshop. So and it was one of those things. And the reason I reference Glenn is because he taught me how to shoot natural light portraits.
Yeah.
And his biggest saying was, find the light and put them in it.
Yeah.
We found the light, baby. It was
good.
Perfect. It could not have been. And in fact, you went back there at a different time of day, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
So we really lucked out. And luckily we had a few people with sort of characterful faces like Jack, like Jeff. We put them in that light, and we were able to get it. The best thing though was the reactions of people like Louise, who really got excited. She was like, I didn't even know how to do this.
Yeah.
And now I do. And here we were in the middle of nowhere. Literally nowhere.
Yeah.
Or the middle of everywhere, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
After a 5-day hike, getting a portrait workshop done. So that was a little bonus for the trip. It was pretty cool.
And I think I think the other thing that worked really well with that, you can put someone in a shack like that with a bit of light, fresh out of bed, had breakfast, had a shower, all looked nice for the shot. Or you could walk them for 5 days through hell in the weather and put them, and then they're naturally weathered and naturally a little bit tired and a little bit dirty. Like, it just added to it. Like, you didn't have to add makeup. That was raw and real. And that's really what that track's all about. It's raw and real, regardless. And your photography can be raw and it's real, like the shots we've got behind us and the shots we've taken.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to sound really cliche and really not out of my normal vocabulary, but it's a kind of place that does, you sort of immerse yourself into it. You really do become one with this landscape as you're walking through, because the shots you take are generally maybe a little bit different to the normal shots you take. You're sort of more naturally taking shots as opposed to sort of creating them later on. The light's different. The landscape's incredible. It's just one of those places where if you're a photographer, you've got to go and do it, and you've got to take your time and enjoy it.
There's no question. If you're able to get yourself out there and do it, because you will not regret it, and do it now.
Yeah.
Don't wait to do it. And you're exactly right in what you say. That immersion in the landscape. Look, I've been on a couple of locations that have moved me spiritually, and I'm not a spiritual guy generally. But the Overland, it gets to you. There's no question about it. The other place was Mungo National Park, which is just mind blowing, and Uluru. So and probably the 12 Apostles, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
There's places that just get you, and the Overland is definitely one of those. Well, Tassie is definitely one of those places, but the Overland for sure. And being, as I say, it was an absolute privilege to be able to do it. So thank you, Cam, for
you're welcome. Absolutely.
convincing me to finally do it and throwing me down the track. It was absolutely.
I still can't believe you actually did it, because usually you say, "Yeah, I'll do it," and then you're like, nah.
Yeah. Well, the thing for me was the thing I can't get over is it's done.
Yeah, and it is. It's done, and you look back at it, you're like, "Okay, I did that. What next?"
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Tassie has a special place in Australia, and I'm sure people that listen to our show or watch it, most of them have been to Tassie or thinking of going to Tassie. It's one of those places, trust me, where you go there and spend a bit of time there, and it'll all click. It'll all make sense as to why we love it so much. So
and so I was fortunate enough to be able to spend 4 more days in Tassie after the walk.
Yeah,
my lovely family flew down from Melbourne, and we spent 4 days in Hobart, and we used Hobart as a base to go out. We did the Huon Valley, we did the Derwent Valley, we went to Richmond as well. So we had a good bit of a look around. Mount Field, of course, Russell Falls, those sort of places. Can I just say, Mount Field, I think, is a beautiful place, no question. But what I like most about it is how accessible they've made it.
Yes.
So that people who are not maybe physically capable of doing something like the Overland or getting to beautiful waterfalls and things like that, Russell Falls at Mount Field is wheelchair accessible, which bloody kudos to Tassie for doing that, whether it was parks or the government or whatever. To be able to put some, Russell Falls is gorgeous. There's no question about it. And it's in rainforest. It's absolutely beautiful. And to be able to let anyone, I mean, it's a 15-minute walk from the cafe. It blew my mind. I think I forgot. I'd been there before, but I've forgotten just how easy it was to get to. And then there's a bit of a hike up to go to Horseshoe Falls, but to be able to do that loop walk and take in Russell Falls and get back along the creek, hats off to parks in Tassie for doing that.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what you do? I go out there a fair bit, and you do see people who have special needs or mobility issues, and they are at the platform looking at Russell Falls. And I can tell you now, when I see those guys out there, I'm the first to say, let's get a photo of you in front of these falls, because it's like, we do it pretty easy, but for some people it's a real effort to get out there and to get into nature. So they do a great job of it. There's a few other spots around Tassie where they've done a really good job to get people to as close to nature as they can. So but it's one of those places, I think, it really is I reckon it's the jewel of the Australian sort of wilderness in a way. Like, it's just got everything. And we've got the outback, which is great. We've got the coasts, which are great. But Tassie's sort of got it all. Like, we've got coast, forests, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it's only an hour from Hobart, an hour from Melbourne, and 2 hours from Sydney. And
I'm almost kicking myself that I hadn't done it sooner, because you take it for granted. You forget that it's there, and it is so accessible and so easy to get to. And Hobart itself is a gorgeous city. Now, as luck would have it, we were there in autumn. We're in peak autumn, and the colours were nuts around every corner. In Hobart itself, there's beautiful autumn colours all over the place. We had an hour to kill before we caught our plane, so we went to the Botanical Gardens, and you've got a gorgeous Botanical Gardens there in Hobart. So I got lots of amazing photos there as well, and my kids loved it too. They loved. I think they liked the small city feel of Hobart. It's a boutique city. I like that. And the waterfront's amazing, and the Salamanca markets, and the tourism Tassie should be paying us.
You should show me off now. I'll tell you one place. This is going to be the most selfless plug of all time. What is really great for colour at the very moment is Bright.
Yes.
Where I've just come from. We spent 5 days up there. It is the best colour I've seen up there for years. And we are going again next year, 2024, April. I think we're doing April 26th to April 30th, I think it is. It'll be somewhere, but I was blown away with the colour. The photo you put up of the Derwent Valley with the poplars.
Yes.
It got me really, really excited to get up to Bright, but all the poplars in Bright have started shedding already.
Yep.
So we didn't have as many poplars, but we had all these other elms and chestnut trees and myrtles and not myrtles, what are they called? Maples and things like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, I'm glad you had a great time in Tassie, and I'm glad you did the track. Smashed the track actually. You didn't look like you struggled much at all. It was pretty easy.
Oh, don't worry. There was
We'll
battles
see what the
going
doctor
on.
says. We'll see what the doctor says tomorrow.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I know the first question you'll ask me is that
where the hell are you been?
No calendars at your house? Don't know exactly how old you are.
Oh right. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what you've done there. You might have just done a little strain or a little twerk.
I'm sure it's just a calf strain. It's an old man's injury. That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you to our beer donations for this week. Mel,
thanks, Mel.
Nice work. If you would like to donate some beer, Down South Photo, dsps.com.au is the website. So if you go there, if you want to support the channel, you can go there. You can buy us a beer if you want to. You don't have to, of course. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, aside from popping down to good old Ocean Grove to see me in the next couple of days, Cam, what have you got coming up? Bit of a break, I hope.
Yeah, a little bit of a break. Got about a week and a bit off. Tomorrow, sadly, I hate to tell, but I am catching up with Tom Putt tomorrow. I know.
We couldn't get one episode without.
I know. You know what? He carried on like an absolute bitch the other day because I didn't mention him in the last episode. He's like, "What? No mention." Well, anyway, for those
he hasn't listened this far on this one, so he hasn't heard this one either. So
that's it. For those who don't know Tom, don't bother. But I've got to go pick up some books that we are selling together.
Yes.
And then Thursday I'm going to come down. Maybe we can do lunch or something on Thursday.
We'll work something out.
We'll work it out. I got to catch the boat. So I'm back, and then I head off to the Flinders Island next, which is next weekend. So I've got a week and a bit off. So looking forward to that.
You've earned it, my friend.
I think so. What about you? Is it just business as usual?
So we're back into it. It was funny. Like, you take 10 days away from your business and you come back to 20 days of work. So
tell me about it.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at right now. Is catching up on everything, and which is great. The Ocean Grove camera and photo, for those of you following along at home, is doing quite well. We're nice and busy. We've got lots of canvas prints. My goodness, doing lots of canvas prints as always. And talking to lots of people about my walk.
Really? There's lots of people coming?
Yeah, a lot of people know that I went off and did it, and they're all happy to have a chat about it.
Has anyone seen that video of you walking across the campsite in your jocks?
I don't think that'll ever see the light of day if I have anything to do with it.
If you would like to see Brendan walking down. Well, the canvases they're big. Let me know when you're going to do your canvas of that thing. Because I might send you a file to do for canvas for me as well. I might get one done as well. But
I'm going to have a hard time. I've got a spot on my wall for my Derwent Valley shot, the panoramic
that's lovely.
Of the autumn colours, and I've got another spot here in my office for this one. So that's probably what'll happen at some point. And I do get a real kick out of making my own photos.
Absolutely. I've actually got to put some photos together when I get home for this exhibition I'm doing at the Gustav Weindorfer Memorial Day, which is next weekend. So I've got to print out some A2s and frame some A2s. So I'll be busy doing that later this week.
Excellent.
But I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days. I look forward to seeing some more of your photos, actually. See what you've got there.
I can show you some stuff.
Yeah, do it.
I will do. That's it.
Hey, how much better is it when you do an episode and you record it?
And you actually hit the record button.
It's amazing.
I'll never live it down, but hey, it was the first time for everything. Dear Cam, we're going to hold over to next week, so we'll be back in the swing of things. This is the last time we're going to talk about the Overland Track. People are probably sick of us talking about it. No, we're going to talk about it a lot more.
We're going to keep crapping on. Next week, we'll be back to sort of normal broadcasting next week, I think. I've actually got a topic for next week. Do you want me to tell you what it is?
Yes, go on.
Cool. This has been eating away at my little brain for the last few weeks, but if you write a book and then someone just goes and copies it word for word and they sell it themselves, it's called plagiarism. Yes. If you, for example, go pull off Michael Jackson's Thriller song, redo it as your own, and try and sell it without permission, it's copyright infringement.
Yes.
If you paint the Mona Lisa again and try and sell it as an original, it's a ripoff. So why, as photographers, can I go back to that place behind you and take the exact same photo and sell it? Is that not copying you or breaching your intellectual property of some sort. I think it's a conversation. It's an interesting conversation, and I've got a couple of examples of it. Why photographs or photographers don't have any real protection of their intellectual property from a photo that they've created.
We'll talk about that next week. I look forward to it.
Tune in.
We've left a cliffhanger.
Yeah, tune in.
We don't do that.
No, we don't do anything. We just, well,
that's it. That's the podcast. Thanks for tuning into episode 78 of the Down South Photo Show. We will see you for episode 79 next week. Yep. Bye for now.
Don't forget to stop recording at the right time.
Yeah, I'll probably just keep recording now.
We'll just roll into the next episode.
Yeah, that's right.